Hi, this is a response to Rob, or Trolling Tony's, recent video on humans versus zombies, the state of the game, having fun, and not being an arse. This is also an open letter of sorts to the Nerf and humans versus zombies communities as a whole. This is unscripted and will be unedited. And I should mention that I'm currently running on not enough sleep and perhaps a little bit too much coffee. There's a reason why I'm doing things this way. There's a certain forthright bluntness that comes with thinking, that comes with speaking without thinking too much beforehand. Should I do a do-over? No. This is the first take, I'm just going to post it. There's a certain forthright bluntness that comes with speaking without thinking too much beforehand and without thinking too much afterwards during the editing. And it is this bluntness that I think that his video deserves in a response, because he's clearly very passionate about what he's talking about. He's passionate at the expense of coherence, and basically I wanted to say he's right. That's the first thing that I wanted to say. I wanted to elaborate on some of the points that he made a little and suggest some solutions, but first and foremost, if you take away only one thing from this video, I fully believe that humans versus zombies needs to be fun, because being fun is what allows it to exist. A game of humans versus zombies can do many great things. I do not expect everyone to get exactly the same things from a game. There's a saying that comes to mind here. If you sing a song, 1,000 people will sing it back to you for 1,000 different reasons. So a game can help people to find friends. That's great. Going from being a nerdy introvert with 0 friends to being a nerdy introvert with some friends, that's huge. That's great. And humans versus zombies can do many great things, but it cannot do any of those things if it does not exist. And fun is what helps it to continue existing. Because what does everyone like? Fun. What keeps people coming back? Fun. What draws people in the first place? The idea that the game will be fun. So a game where the players aren't having fun is going to turn into a game without players, and a game without players is nothing. So, how do we keep the game fun? I would like to go on what will seem at first like a tangent, but there's a point that I'm trying to make, and I promise that I will get to that point to answer the question of how do we keep games fun. I would like to tell the story of 2 games that I have played. One boring and one a disaster. Of all of the games of humans versus zombies that I have played, I have survived exactly 1. And I would like to say how I survived. This is going to be the opposite of bragging, and you'll see what I mean when I say how I survived. I survived by not playing. Pretty much. I was fortunate enough that my class schedule was arranged in such a way that I had some days where I had all of my classes in one building, and with that game, inside academic buildings was a safe zone. There was no play inside academic buildings, so as long as I was in the building, I was safe. Also, as long as I was off campus, I was safe. The only tricky bit was getting between the two. And I figured out a cowardly way to do that. I snuck onto an off-campus at ghastly hours in the morning. I would sneak onto campus before the sun was up, while all sane people were still asleep, and I would sneak into this building through a door that campus security consistently forgot to lock when they locked the buildings down for the night. Now, I spent the whole day in that building. Then I would sneak off campus at a ghastly hour in the morning the next day. Because when security closes down the buildings, they don't check all the rooms. So if you're quiet and you keep the lights off when they come by, you can stay. That wouldn't work on a campus with motion detectors, but it worked for me. Also, there was a rule that I had to be on campus for 1 hour every day. Of course, if I'm leaving after 1 in the morning on a given day, I have been on campus for 1 hour during that 24 hours period. I also attended the missions during this game and played somewhat bravely, as I am wont to do, but not as much as I usually would. I spent an uncharacteristically large amount of time in the middle of a mass of humans who had blasters pointed in all directions, pinging darts at zombies from afar and maybe occasionally hitting them and never being in any actual real danger. So, I survived, but it's not really an accomplishment given the way that I survived, because I did it by basically not playing. Now, I think that there's a tendency amongst human players to overemphasize survival, because in some situations, survival really is an accomplishment. If someone picks many fights with zombies and somehow comes through all of them, that's notable. That's worthwhile. And it requires a lot of skill to pull off. And even if you have a lot of skill, it's not guaranteed. It's going to take skill and several games to join the I not only survived to, but I also survived through the final mission club. So players can come to regard this as being like the peak of the mountain. It is what they aspire to. And that's not fundamentally a bad aspiration, but in aspiring simply to survive, it's all too easy to neglect all of the things that make survival such an impressive accomplishment in the first place. And it's also easy to neglect all of the other things that make a game worth playing. Like, if a person is focused on survival, they're not going to be focused on being a good friend to other players. So they're not going to be a good friend to other players, because that's not where their focus is. Their focus is going to be on running and hiding and being a coward and being the best of the best and being better than everyone else, or thinking that they're better than everyone else because they're achieving this arbitrary thing that they can, have a checkbox on their checklist. Achievement unlocked, survived through a game. Well, that's not fundamentally a bad aspiration. It's just problematic when it's done at the expense of everything else. So I don't think there's anything wrong with someone who wants to check off that box on their list and get it out of their system and then get back to actually playing. So long as that's what you do, you get back to actually playing. Which brings me in a roundabout way to the second game that I want to talk about. The first one was the boring story. This one is going to be the disaster story. This game was a logistical nightmare. The moderators put a large amount of time and effort into making the mission designs innovative and complicated. To the point where players had no idea what was going on throughout much of the game. And to the point and with so much effort put into mission designs that there was no time or effort left over for all of the little things that make a game run smoothly. In a good game, innovative mission design is like icing on a cake. In this game, the mission design was like confusing icing, a huge heap of confusing icing without any cake underneath it. This game also has the dubious distinction of being one of the few games that has been grossly unbalanced at different times in both directions. During the early game, the humans were slaughtered. A massive number died because humans were wandering around campus looking for things and not finding them, while the zombies had a very short respawn timer, which was brutal and awesome, but it resulted in a near-human wipe. During the mid-game, some zombies got bored and left due to what was largely a lack of horde leadership. During the final mission, the zombie numbers that were expected to be there just weren't there, and the humans stomped on the zombies. The mission was over almost as soon as it began. From a textbook perspective of what should make a game good or bad, this should have been a terrible game, but I managed to have a blast anyway. There were a lot of players who did not have fun because some zombie players left in the middle of the game, but nonetheless, I had fun. It was certainly possible to have fun, and that was possible because I played. I was brave, almost reckless as a human, and I was vicious as a zombie. And I had a blast. And I think that is the key here. It's not about being the best of the best and being better than everyone else and surviving while other players die, because that's a game that not everyone can win. By definition, there will be losers in the try to survive and outdo everyone game. Whereas if your goal is to try to kick as much butt as you can while you're alive and then kick as much butt as you can after you're not, everyone can win that way because everyone can have fun. Which brings me back around to the central question of how can we affect this change? Or if a game is already fun in this way, how can we make sure that it stays that way? I think as this is fundamentally an issue of player attitude, there's a limit to what moderators can do to fix this. There are many things that moderators can tweak in a game, but player attitudes coming into the game is not one of them. It's something that moderators can influence, and there are many ways that moderators can influence player attitude. Say, for example, having game recruitment posters that advertise the human side of the game, and also having game recruitment posters that advertise the zombie side of the game and make it sound just as appealing. For instance, having an individual point system where players can earn points as humans that continues when there are zombies. So zombies can also earn points and they add up. Measuring both points on the same scale and adding them together would implicitly say that both modes of play are equally valid, both are equally valid as accomplishments, and could create an interesting dynamic where, say, surviving is a good way to get a good score, but there are only so many hours in a game to survive, whereas turning zombie early in the game and eating the many, many brains that exist early in the game is a good way to get a really great score. It's the only way to get a really great score. That's a tangent, or that's a possibility. There are many ways that moderators could influence player attitude, but it's not something that they can control. This means that in order to keep the game fun, this is something that we can all help with, moderators and players alike. So on that note, I have a Tyler Durden-esque homework assignment for you. If you've watched Fight Club, you'll know Tyler Durden was in the habit of handing out homework assignments to his followers. Things like start a fight with a stranger and lose. And in the process of attempting to do this, his followers would learn just how much normal people want to avoid fights. This is going to be a different sort of homework assignment, if you're up for it. You are going to play Humans vs. Zombies, and you are going to pick lots of fights with the zombies, and you are going to lose. Not literally, of course. That should hopefully have been clear, but I thought I ought to say it just in case. When I say pick fights with zombies, I mean stun them. A lot. With blasters and socks. So much for being unedited. Anyway, as I was saying, that is not to say that you should plan to die. That is not to say that you should give up easily. No, those zombies will have to earn your brains. You'll give them plenty of opportunity to earn it, but darn it, they will have to earn it. And when they do, they will not say, oh, there was this person hiding in the building and we nabbed them while they were sneaking out. No, they will say, oh, finally, we have managed to nab the guy who was raining a torrent of foam down upon us, and now we're not just constantly being stunned by this person, and we can get on with the job of slaughtering the rest of the humans. And that's what you'll do. Slaughter the rest of the humans. Burn down the world that you have worked so hard to protect, and it will be glorious. You can play the game as if it's just a game, because it is just a game. Play hard. It'll be fun. I don't know how to end this video. This was unscripted. I should probably say something about who I am. If you've played Waterloo's games, you might know me as Herbert West, the guy who sometimes comes in from afar and waves these things about. If you're on the Humans vs. Zombies subreddit, you might know me as Herbert_W, the one who posts a lot, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. There's just a point that I'm trying to make. Play hard. Who cares if you survive? Kick ass. Don't be an ass. I might apologise for the camera quality, but I don't think that really has much to do with anything. And I don't know how to end this video, so if I think of anything more to say, there's going to be a jump cut. Otherwise, go ahead. Be brave as a human, be vicious as a zombie, and please play the game as if it is just a game, because it is just a game, and have fun.